Good evening and welcome to this edition of DeFacto Review, bringing you a weekly edition of news that are shaping Mongolia. I am Aruna, with me is Jargal DeFacto. We are live on Facebook at VTelevision Mongolia. Please also follow us on Twitter, #Jargal_DeFacto, coming up on the program. Is corruption the reason behind a murder case of a public servant? What prevents us from developing the capital market? Who are the secret sellers of gold in Mongolia? On August 9th, 2018, around 10 p.m., a lawyer, 38 years old, Mr. Qamsurang, who was head of Monitoring, Evaluation and Internal Audit Department of Ministry of Road and Transport Development, was beaten to death near the ministry's building by another public servant named Mahbal, who was a former policeman, 48 years old, and was serving as head of state administration and management department at the same ministry. He was also public servant in the previous government, and he was the department head at Ministry of Mining previously, and then discharged. Please, could you tell us more about the reason behind this murder and if it is related to corruption in the government?
Well, in a bigger sense, we talk about not only this incident accident shows how deep is this governance crisis in Mongolia. Our Mongolian governance is based on the secrecy of Mongolian political parties' financing. Political parties are the only institutions in democracy which takes whole power of the government. And these Mongolian political parties never disclose true picture of their financing. As a result, they are selling public positions like goods with different prices, and the higher the rank is, the more expensive the price is. There was a case where 60 billion tugriks raising through this sort of scheme was revealed, video was revealed, which was refused to be accepted by anti-corruption agency, and about which one policymaker, Mr. Oyun Irdin, is raising the cause. And it's just it shows the quality of Mongolian public officers. It's one of the bad cases of this situation, officers, and also how they were brought up. The video shows that 5 persons or so was watching those who were drinking together alcohol in their office, and 5 of them were watching when one officer is killing another one. He was beaten and by foot, how you say, he was kicked to the death in a way. And it's how egoistic the people can be. Even the 2 animals are biting, or if somebody is beating even an animal, people go and would save them, stop them and save the animal. So, which was not the case, unfortunately, there. So now we raise questions. What is the criteria to select, nominate, and change public officers in Mongolia? That's the questions we should ask.
According to his income statement, the accused has a family income of around $93,000 per year, and he also has a $600,000 worth real estate. Does this mean that these public officers officer was conducting private business company also?
It's interesting questions. In any democracy, you should not have a ceiling of how much you can be rich. But the only thing is, this wealth you have should be created, earned through the hard labor, through the work, in legal way, not illegal way. If it is a legal way, any wealth is gathered somewhere, that's the duty of state to stop and to bring a question to the court, that person. In Mongolia, trying so, we have a system where public officers declare their annual income. And according to this system, you can go and check on the website any political officer, you put name and they will find out. They will tell you how much the wealth he has. This is the information you have, you just now said is from that website. And also on that website, that person, Mr. Maqbal, had also borrowed 500 million tugriks from another individual named Tham Sureng. So now the question really comes, having this sort of wealth he has, and also this sort of a large loan, the question raises whether this loan is connected with anything to do with the Ministry of Road and Transport Development, where he was responsible for a certain department. So that's another question raises, etc. In general, it shows also raises questions why Mongolian public officers are becoming very wealthy. Meanwhile, Mongolian companies are becoming poorer, and some even release their workers, employees with or without salary, and there is no job in private sector, and then no salary, and it increasing poverty. As a result, many Mongolians want to go to Korea, and they go 10 or so thousands of them are coming almost every month to Korea now. And that's the situation. And the question raises why the Mongolian public officers are becoming so rich. In general, the general description of a Mongolian employee, public employee at the level of department or higher, is usually having one Lexus 570, if possible, the latest model, and then have a couple houses and up to 10 or 20 racing horses, very fast racing horses, which is very expensive, probably as expensive as the cars. So these people, this sort of very typical picture being kind of raised in Mongolia. So really the question is how we can stop this sort of process where these public officers are becoming like this, very rich, and plus also because some of them are becoming killer.
So what actions has the government taken so far?
The minister has resigned or give request to resign. And also the deputy was also resigning. But however, the minister, they also replaced, they have fired all the department heads as well. And they just now nominated one person to be state secretary of the ministry who will be responsible for staffing and all this work. But however, it's a very interesting thing to note is the minister cannot be fired by Prime Minister of Mongolia, though he is a cabinet member. Why? Because all ministers of Mongolia are being nominated by the parliament, through which the Prime Minister is becoming very weak as he cannot hire and fire his cabinet members. As a result, we have very weak executive government in Mongolia, and we have not one Prime Minister. As we say, we have 76 Prime Ministers, which are 76 parliament members of Mongolia. So this clearly shows the confusion of power in the society. As a result, whenever the government or the ministers change it, they would bring on people to every ministry, at the department level, and those people will be having more problem with, say, who is higher, who is lower in the position, violating the basic rule of public government system in a democracy.
Mm-hmm. Any prognosis as to the next steps of the government on this case and what the nation expects of it?
Well, whatever happens, until Mongolian people know where the political parties get their money, unless we control the money they are receiving, which in some countries they finance partially 1/3 or so of political parties' expenses through budget. The others, they give you freedom, but they ask them to report properly. If they don't report properly, then they would not give money from the budget. So until this system is set in this country, we most likely having a problem with Mongolian public officers' quality, their competence, their way, how they can do their duties. So as on one side, it is not only this political party issues. At the personal level, it's a matter of being modest, humble for all Mongolians, in particular public officials. Otherwise, it can bring this sort of results, thinking that any disputes can be solved through fights or murders.
Okay. Let's move to our next topic regarding the non-banking sector, which is experiencing growth. The Financial Regulatory Commission reports show that the non-banking sector is experiencing rapid growth in the first half of 2018. More specifically, in the non-bank financial institutions, the total asset of around 485 active institutions has increased by 33% last year, reaching $470 million. In the insurance sector, the total asset of 17 companies has increased by 13% last year, reaching $117 million. Then, with regard to savings and credit unions, the total revenue of 289 organizations has increased by 37.4% in the last year, reaching $7.9 million. And also on the stock exchange, where 303 public companies are listed, the top 20 of them have brought 58.6% increase in market value. On the other hand, securities market is comprised of 54 active companies, and that market has increased by 65%, reaching $1 billion. So the question is this rapid growth in the non-banking sector healthy?
Well, let's compare it. Let's say the structure of Mongolian financial market,
okay,
which is consisting of money market, mostly commercial banks, and non-bank financial institutions, because those assets term, the loan term is less than 1 year. Every money, short money, with the term of less than 1 year is called money market. With more than 1 year, up to 20, 30 years, including bond, we don't have it bond the long term, but more than 1 year is capital market. So if you take inside of the money market, Mongolian commercial banks have increased. We are, by the way, comparing half of this year, a year-on-year basis with the last year. So that's why we say 1 year up to the end of the first half of this year. Mongolian commercial banks' total asset and reached First time 30, that would be trillion tugriks, which is first time we are more than Mongolian GDP, which is in 2017 was 27 trillion tugriks. So unlike before, it's rather bank-dominated country because the banking assets are more than the economy. Inside of the banking asset, half of it loan, commercial loan, and 1.3% of the total loan is non-quality loan. And here, this altogether is it's over economy, larger than the economy, but the non-bank financial sector is relatively very small, and but they are increasing faster. I mean, they one bank 13%, non-banking financial institutions 30%, almost 3 times, 2.5 times, which says that commercial banks are less likely providing less loan compared to non-banking sector where you receive loan 2 times more interest rate than banks. So non-banking sector existing because there is more demand of people for the fast money quickly, even if it's expensive. It also shows that those companies who bank do not provide loans are provided with the loans by these non-bank financial institutions. So that's why it is healthy, unhealthy, it depends on the size. On the other hand, if we talk about this commercial, the capital market, first time Mongolian capital market capitalization had reached 1 trillion tugrik, which is about 9.1%, almost 10% of Mongolian economy. So 10% of the economy of Mongolia is based on this, comparable with the size of the market capitalization, which is good news. But however, it could be way higher. We will talk about that. And let me say a few words about the insurance. Insurance market is about only 1.2% of GDP. Just for the reference, Luxembourg is 4.2 times larger than economy, the insurance assets. In France, it's the same, 100%. Germany, 70%. Finland, 30%. Mongolia, 1.2%. It shows how much it has to grow further. Because more insurance, it means more mature economy, because everybody insuring their risk through insurance system. Now, unfortunately, insurance system is not very much trusted, though cases are different. My private case, I lost car, insured car, and my insurance company haven't paid any penny, though it was only 5 years old car, and I was 3 years insuring with Mandal Insurance Company. Just 2 years from now, ago, my car was stolen and broken, and it is turned over in countryside. So I got nothing from the insurance company. For stock companies who are selling their shares on Mongolian Stock Exchange, though it's increased, very good, 60% for last year, first time, phenomenal high-speed growth. But overall, the things don't go very well in Mongolia because we have a hangover from the great privatization early 90s. Many companies, many people didn't know much about shares, and those who want, they go and to their home and bought it without stock exchange, through stock exchange. And as a result, now many former state-owned communist time, socialist time state-owned companies are owned majority by a family, one family, where on the board their whole family members would be sitting, and they ignore the minority shareholders' interests, and they're not even reporting their financials, and most dramatically, the Mongolian Financial Regulatory Commission is not able to enforce them to report their financial activities half year or annually. They don't report, and they say to my minor shareholders that they have not made any profit this year, and they never distribute, they don't distribute any dividends. So that hangover of that privatization are remaining mostly in people's mind. So people don't much trust the public-owned shareholding companies.
So, with regards to the banking sector, how come is it not experiencing the same rapid growth?
Yeah, they have experienced a certain growth. Year-on-year basis, 2018 quarter 2 or first half, they have, if you compare year-on-year basis, it's about 13% growth of banking asset.
Okay.
And the same about, a little bit less, about 10% also loan portfolio growth. But it is not that faster as 30%, 33% is non-bank financial sector. So one large one is growing, say 13%, but the smaller one growing 30%, which is acceptable. But however, still concerned that in Mongolia it's very hard to find money. To borrow money is very expensive, over 20–24%, which makes it almost impossible for small companies to go ahead, because you cannot make more than 24% of your profit is paid to the a bank, and you cannot make more profit on that. That's why the private sector first is not very much thriving. Second, because the tax is high, they have less money for investment to extending of their businesses. And yet state-owned companies are increasing, and they are more politically connected. It's very hard to compete with your minister's company. So that's the situation in Mongolia, and this country is still needs more liquidity available for private sector.
Is this the main reason that you mentioned that is preventing us from developing the capital markets?
The main reason is not only bank is dominating, but also because this reporting system is not very clear. The state cannot enforce the companies truly report their truly and correctly report their reports, financial activities, and that's why people trust in those companies if they want to buy shares is not very strong in Mongolia. Plus, Mongolia keep changing policies all the time because government is changing all the time, and so government is not stable. Policy is not predictable. Bank is very expensive to borrow, so that's why the business doesn't go as much as we wanted. The growth, by the way, growth experienced 6.3% for first half of the year. It was mostly because tax was increasing, tax revenue was increasing. Surprisingly high increase of taxes. That is, the taxes had increased. Tax revenue of the country had increased 30% compared with a year ago. So because tax increased, government revenue increased, or consumption increased, the economy increased. I don't think it's a very wealthy growth of economy through taxes.
Let's move to our last topic regarding the gold production and mining sector. Arthur, production companies that sell gold to Mongol Bank are selling them as a private individual and not as a company. So what is the impact of taxation on gold production in Mongolia?
Very much. It's exactly the more tax, less gold is coming to Mongolian coffin, which is in the Mongol Bank. 2005, Mongol Bank bought 15 tons of gold. Then they have to, next year, after 1 year after, they have introduced so-called windfall tax, 68%. Then 2010, after what, 5 years, Mongol Bank got only 2.1 tons gold. Then they have stopped that 68%. They have stopped special taxes on gold, decreased the royalty for gold from 5% to 2.5%. As a result, the Mongol Bank started to buy more golds. 2017, or after 7 years, first time the Mongol Bank bought 20 tons of gold, increasing the reserve by 787 million US dollar. So gold is important. When it comes to Mongol Bank, it goes into the money turnover. If they don't go, if the gold is tax is high, they disappear through black market, mostly smuggling, which creates shadow economy, which creates money laundering, which goes through, not through the banks, which creates more shadow economy. So on one side, it's very hard to get the gold directly to Mongol Bank, because now companies come and just pay, and we have a very little tax from the gold. On another matter, we have in the tax law of a company, corporate tax, if there is a beyond certain level they're receiving, if it's 3 billion more than they pay 300 million to Greeks. If their revenue is over 3 billion, less than 3 billion, but more than 3 billion, they pay 25% of the revenue as a tax, which is a big, it was big hindrance for gold producers, and that's why 5 years ago they have abolished that part, and they changed some provision in mining law that they have nulled this law, which helped to increase the gold coming to Mongol Bank. And why? Because the gold producers are selling gold not as a company, but as an individual. When you are as an individual, you just pay this 2.5% royalties, and then it's way more profitable for gold producers. But the problem is, along with this person coming as a person from the company, there are many people who are coming really as a person. And those persons go where the ninja, the artisanal, how call it, miners are there. We have about 100,000 of them all around Mongolia. Because Mongolia is a very large country, we cannot control all the time where the people are digging gold. And they're digging at their camps, usually. At night, there will be a person who will buy all this gold at very good price, market price from them, or a little bit probably lower price. They pay and they buy gold, somebody there. And this person collecting all this golds being collected illegally, meaning that they are not recovering the place. It remains big holes after they really destroy the nature there. And still this person is coming and paying, giving a gold to Mongol Bank. Mongol Bank is not demanding from him where the gold is taken, which is kind of promoting this ninja activities. But on the other side, if they demand too much details, they will smuggle the gold. So that's the very hard dilemma for Mongolian government about the gold.
Thank you. Very, very briefly, what is the solution to the smuggling of gold?
Well, for enforcement of the law and creating other jobs which could be more profitable for these ninja people. And all gold companies should be officially declaring their, just enforce the existing law will help. But but this very market, the gray economy. But the most important thing is opportunity, jobs creation in Mongolia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Good evening.